Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Milo's Mystery Box. Happy Valentine's Day. Um, let's get straight to it. So, this video is about a Valentine's Day story from last year. Well, technically, last year it was the day after Valentine's Day, but essentially, it's been about a year since I had to cut off my quote unquote ex girlfriend. Yeah, I put those in air quotes or parentheses only because, weird situation that didn't even really go beyond a certain point. But even so, regardless of that, it's a crazy Valentine's Day story because to give a little bit of context after some time, I had reconnected with an old childhood friend, as I had mentioned in previous videos. And I believe as a result, it seemed like things for a while, we both believed, in fact, that things were going in a positive direction towards, full on romance. However, little did I know, there were other aspirations at play, and there were other variables I didn't understand that were at play yet. So, anyways, with that being said, it's getting closer to Valentine's Day. Now, I'm trying to figure out, where I should go next with my life. And my quote unquote ex texts me about getting dinner with her and her family members, the day or the night after Valentine's Day at a casino, let's just say in Michigan, near South Bend. I'll just put it like that. And at first, I wasn't really comfortable with the idea because it's the day after Valentine's Day, and we were already kind of having some problems beforehand, regarding tensions, communication, and I kind of felt like, well, if you want to claim to just be friends, it's like, why would you want to do that? Because typically, with most heterosexual cis people when they're adults, usually it's like, especially, you're dealing with someone from the opposite sex, um typically you don't really do that unless if you are going out on a date, usually speaking, like unless if one understands their boundaries, but I guess, in this case you could say not so much. But essentially, I was hesitant to the idea at first because I said, well, do these relatives that you speak of, your cousin and cousin-in-law, do they really know what's going on? Um, she tried to insist that yes, they did, but I was kind of convinced otherwise. Before, this was really like, this was all before I started to really reflect as a person and change, a lot of the negative aspects about myself and my personality, before I realized some things about what like nice guys and people pleasers were. But anyways, she says some sort of joke in response to me saying, I hope this is not, a double date, and not really recognizing that, I had a lot more of established feelings at one point, went ahead and made the joke, oh, wouldn't that be funny, type of thing. And, I rightfully called her out on that and said I didn't appreciate that. It kind of hurt my feelings. And if you ever, it's like, before you think of, ever saying anything like that to anybody again, you might want to think about it. I should have gone farther and just said, we're completely done, because at that point I was just like, I was completely sick and tired of all the nonsense, essentially, to put it politely. And that's going to be for another video. But basically, we went to dinner with some of her relatives the night after, and I started to realize, since her graduation party and other things, I'm just like, something doesn't sit right here. You're not really the person that you say that you are, and neither is your family. And it just kind of felt more uneasy, kind of more awkward, that sort of thing. So after a while, like a few days later, I said, I don't think that was really appropriate. I should have communicated myself better about this. But I said, I don't think that was really appropriate given that it was after Valentine's Day, and this would suggest to me that you had other intentions. And by other intentions, I don't mean, oh, like taken advantage of. I mean kind of like almost like say it's not a date, but almost have it be like a date, especially since it's after Valentine's Day. And I said, you know what? I don't think that's socially appropriate because of that. Well, she didn't like that. She got mad. I mean, and I should have communicated better about the situation. I really didn't communicate that well. And then accused me with a line basically saying, "Oh, I'm starting to get the idea that you don't like my family." And I instantly said, "Well, you know what? You're right. I really don't." Because this is the type of person who comes from a family that has a history of stealing money and family heirloom jewelry from other people and has a tendency to lie and fabricate details about things. So, and I said, yeah, I really, it's like, I know, or no, I really don't. And in fact, here's the family members in particular that I don't like versus the ones that I like. And, basically said to me, I don't think we should, I should invite you to this and that anymore. And I said, you know what, go ahead, fine, don't. I'd probably prefer it that way. And that kind of ensued in two separate arguments afterwards, one immediately after, and then one like a day later. But overall, though, that was like the turning point of everything where I decided to say, you know what, I'm completely done with this. I should have ended things long before when I wasn't given straight answers about where we were going in the future, what are we type of thing. And I honestly should have communicated better. I should have been able to problem solve, to be able to recognize these things before. And I take accountability for that. But I realize looking back on it, the whole thing from start to finish, and that's going to be a whole nother video. It just, it wasn't good. I shot myself in the foot, and she shot herself in the foot too. But overall, I guess it's kind of what happens when you deal with someone who's kind of like a child and thinks they have all this power and control, but in reality, they don't. And you or me, I did, and I just didn't really realize it. But, anyways, happy Valentine's Day, everyone. It's kind of a crazy, unscripted story, but thought I'd share this. I hope you all are having an amazing day, whether you're by yourself, just lounging, or you're out on a date with your significant other. I hope you have a great night, and I'll see you later.